On the screen with me is a flowchart that represents the general path to making your website ADA compliant. And we're going to talk through every step of this flowchart. And I think it's going to help with not only contextualizing what needs to happen to make your website ADA compliant or WCAG 2.1 AA conformant, but also just understanding what each step of the process is and how the different steps relate to one another and where they come about in the process. So the first block I have on this flow chart is learn what you need slash don't need. And that second part is very important because if you choose the wrong product or service, it can lead you astray. It can waste your time and waste your money. So what do you don't need? Well, below this block, I have solutions. So anytime the word solutions comes up, that's when you need to be on alert because this typically indicates there is some type of technology or software involved. And here there's a lot of inefficiency when it comes to making your website ADA compliant because ultimately what you need are services. So with solutions, I have several bullet points, including overlay widgets, apps, toolbars, custom overlays, software, automated scans, and platforms, right? So some of these things can be okay in and of themselves. So for example, with scans are great, but you can get the value from scans for free. You don't need to pay for a scan, but many digital accessibility companies want to charge you on a subscription for access to scans. You just don't need that. So when it comes to solutions, just be aware of what you don't need because you likely don't need any of it, especially if you are unfamiliar with website accessibility. It's best just to stay away from this. Many digital accessibility companies don't want to provide services, or if they do, they want to wrap them in quote unquote solutions. And that's because that's what makes them the most money. So learning what you need and don't need is very important. And then the next step I have in the process is to talk to 3 to 5 service providers. So obviously it's good to get quotes from different service providers. And, again, part of the first step is knowing exactly what you need, but just approach them, tell them what you need, and then see what they say. Obviously, price is a concern. See what their attention to detail is, see if they try to sell you solutions. And so evaluate those different service providers. And then on the next step, I have select accessible.org. So we're going to assume that you want to work with accessible.org. And that's because for the rest of this path, we're going to explain the process that we have at accessible.org. So the next step is going to be the scope of your project. So what does the audit involve? Because that is going to be the first part, is where we have an audit where we are finding accessibility issues, and we're doing so in a formal setting. So with the audit, the scope is typically, for most clients, it ends up being between 10 and 20 pages or screens. And those pages or screens are going to involve, it's mostly going to be pages. It's going to be the most visited pages. So any pages that are highly trafficked, obviously we want to make sure we find all accessibility issues on those. Your primary layouts. So websites typically use a set of layouts. We want to make sure that we have one of those layouts for each set of layouts, so that we can address those issues, find those issues, and then apply those fixes site-wide. And I have primary layouts, unique layouts. Primary layouts being, again, the ones that are more involved in the typical user flow, because we want to make sure that we find all of the accessibility issues in the typical user flow. Unique layouts being layouts that are different. We want to make sure that our audit scope is going to cover any unique layouts. So we're making sure that all of the layouts on your that are used in your website are taken care of, and then also any unique content. So if there's any unique content, we want to make sure that that's going to be incorporated into the audit, so that we're not, there aren't any accessibility issues that are new that are coming up outside of the scope. So optimally, the scope will cover all of the major accessibility issues, all of the most trafficked pages, all of the unique layouts. So that's what happens when we determine scope. Usually, most clients prefer that we determine the scope, and then we'll go ahead and provide the scope to the client, and then the client will let us know if there's any additional pages they want to add in, or if there are any pages they don't think are necessary. So, and then on the next step of this workflow, we have a services proposal, and this is where we go over all of the details. So it's not just the scope of the audit, but we're going to talk about, this is going to include the technical expert or experts auditing the website. Everything's going to be fully manual. We're going to work from a standard, and the standard is typically WCAG 2.1 AA, although it can be 2.0 or 2.2. And then we talk about the environments involved. So which screen readers are we going to use? This is going to be a mobile and desktop audit. And then also we are going to include keyboard testing. And then, of course, there's going to be the visual inspection of the website. And then we're also going to inspect the code. So with the services proposal, this is where we help you, the client, understand exactly what's going to happen, how detailed this is going to be, and just knowing that this audit is meticulous and it's done the right way. And so we'll prevent, obviously, the scope will be inside the services proposal. And then if there are any other things that we've talked about, so you'd like to add some consulting hours, we'll include those in the proposal as well. So now moving on to the next step, we have the actual audit taking place. Typically, this happens, the audit is completed within 2 to 4 weeks, but just know that usually it's on the quicker side. So usually it's closer to 2 to 3 weeks, but it really just depends on the client queue. But usually we have this done within 2 to 4 weeks. So once it's completed, the report will be delivered to you. And when you receive this deliverable, some of the information that you can expect inside of this report, which will be in an Excel spreadsheet format. You will receive detailed information, which includes the accessibility issues, plus an explanation of the issue. So it'll not only be the issue that we find, but an explanation of what the issue is so that whoever is working on the audit understands that. A recommendation on how to fix the issue, which usually includes a code recommendation, but if code's not involved, obviously it won't be applicable. There will also be a screenshot or a clip involved that shows or displays the issue. And then we have a column for disabilities affected. And then there is also a WCAG success criterion. Whatever WCAG success criteria are related to the issue, there's a column for that as well. And there are other columns. I'm not going to go into all of the details, but in the description for this video, I will include a link so that you can go and download a sample audit to get a really good feel of all of the information that's included in our audit report. So after you receive the report, that's when remediation takes place. This is crucial. An audit is only going to tell you the issues that are on your website. Now we need to fix those issues. So you can take those issues in-house. You can hire a contractor. You can also use accessible.org, and we will take care of remediation for you. But the key is that all of the issues are resolved that were found in the audit. And then on this next step I have is that we have a re-audit. So we want to make sure that remediation was successful, that no accessibility issues are outstanding. And so that's when a re-audit takes place. And notably, a re-audit is going to cost only a fraction of the original price of the audit, because we're not re-auditing the entire website. We are going through and we're auditing the issues to make sure that the issues that were remediated were in fact remediated. And then the last step is certification. So once we get through this process, and I went ahead and eliminated a few boxes here, but the important part is that we fix the issues and then review the fixes until we reach a point where your website is fully WCAG 2.1 AA conformant if possible. You might not be able to be fully conformant if there is a third-party integration that you can't get around. In that case, then we could potentially issue a statement of partial conformance. But regardless, the idea here is that we ultimately end up with a fully WCAG 2.1 AA conformant website for the scope given. And then if that is the case, then certification is issued. Certification is not an additional cost. It's just a matter of going through us for the services. And then we actually we're able to verify that there are no accessibility issues that remain outstanding. So this is the path to following best practices for ADA compliance. And this is going to, I think, one reason I wanted to have this flow chart is so that you understand what all of the different terms mean and how they relate to one another. But I think this is really going to help people follow from start to finish. So it will help you stay organized. So there are many documents on accessible.org that go into further detail on the steps I've talked about. One is going to be, I'm going to link to our pricing page. So with pricing page, this will help you know what an audit will cost. This will help you know what remediation will cost. And then I also have documentation on our audits. I have our services proposal document. I also have I talked about our Excel spreadsheet, our sample audit report. That's also on accessible.org. So if you look on accessible.org/documents, you will be able to find some of those documents right away. And then I will also provide links to other resources on accessible.org to help you understand the process. But this is generally how it goes. Obviously, there can be a slightly different approach based on your preference or how you go about it. But this is generally going to be the process. And most people use the terms ADA compliance. I have here path to ADA compliance. This is how you go from start to being unfamiliar with website accessibility and ADA compliance to finish to where you actually have documentation that your website has been audited and it has been found to be WCAG 2.1 AA conformant for all of the pages and screens in scope. So what I will do is I will provide additional links in the description for this video.